Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. You guys sent in some fascinating Neville Goddard material this time, all about conquering doubt and manifesting those big dreams.
Yeah.
So let's get right into it. I think we all have those goals we're working towards, that business we want to start or the book we're going to write or finding that perfect someone. But have you ever felt like self-doubt is the one thing holding you back?
It is. And it's so sneaky because it doesn't come in like with big flashing lights and a siren. It just kind of whispers to you like, are you sure you can really do this? And then it tries to use like logic and past experiences, even like what's happening around us to kind of prove that our desires are just too far out of reach.
It really is like a dream thief.
Yeah.
That steals our motivation before we can even get started. So what does Neville say about tackling this doubt?
The first thing, the most important thing is that doubt, it isn't some unchanging truth. It's just a mental habit. And like with any habit, if we put in the effort and awareness, we can break free.
Okay, so how do we start rewiring those thoughts?
Neville, he really emphasizes those, I am statements. But it's not just about like wishing for something. It's about actively embodying the feeling of your wish fulfilled.
So instead of saying, I am successful,
Yeah.
we have to like actually feel successful. Like if I want to launch a business, I have to feel confident when I'm pitching to investors. I have to see my product on the shelves. I have to feel that energy of leading a team.
Yes, exactly. The feeling is like the key. We align our inner state to match the outcome. And this is where it gets interesting. Neville says we should pay attention to those I am statements that we might be using, but unknowingly.
You're so right. We might be saying things like, I'm just not good enough, or I always mess things up, without even realizing how much those statements are like actually shaping our reality.
It's like we're planting those seeds in our subconscious and then wondering why are all these weeds popping up instead of the flowers that we wanted.
Okay, so instead of those negative I am statements, we need to switch to ones that help our goals, right? Like I am worthy, or I am capable, or I am abundant. Ooh, I'm adding those to my affirmation list for sure.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us to this really cool concept that Neville calls living in the end.
Okay, living in the end, I like the sound of it.
Yeah.
But how do we actually do that?
It might sound kind of counterintuitive, but it's about like fully embracing the reality of your desire as if it's already happened. So let's say you want to buy your dream house.
Okay, yeah, that's one of my big goals, so tell me more.
Okay, well, imagine yourself like walking through the front door and you feel the sun like streaming in through the windows. Picture yourself decorating, choosing all the perfect paint colors, and hosting like dinner parties for all your friends.
Okay, yeah, I can like feel the excitement already.
That's it. It's not about like pretending or lying to yourself. It's about getting your inner state to match the outcome. You gotta feel it to make it real. What would your living in the end look like for your dream house?
Well, I'd be curled up on the couch with a good book, and my dog would be, snoozing at my feet. I'd be out in the garden, maybe even hosting a barbecue for my family.
Yes. You've got to get specific, picture it, feel it all. And that actually leads us to another big part of Neville's manifesting philosophy, gratitude.
Gratitude, okay.
Yeah.
I've definitely heard a lot about its power, but does Neville have anything different to say about it?
He does. He describes it as more than just a nice feeling. It's like a frequency that we align with. He calls it a bridge. It connects the unseen potential of what we want with actually bringing it like into the physical world.
So it's not just about being thankful for what we have now, but for the things we're working towards, as if they're already here.
Exactly. It's like saying, thank you, universe, for my dream house. I'm so excited to make so many happy memories there.
So what's something about your dream house that you could be grateful for, like right now?
Well, I'm grateful that I even have the desire to own a house. It means that I have a vision for my future, and it's pretty exciting.
Beautiful. And even that simple feeling, that gratitude, it starts building that bridge to making your dream a reality.
I'm starting to see how gratitude and that living in the end thing can really, shift how we see things. But I gotta say, there are always going to be those times when the doubt comes back.
Oh, for sure. It always comes back around. And Neville actually, he talks about that. He calls it being disobedient to the vision.
Disobedient to the vision. Okay, I like that. It shows how doubt can really, really knock us off track. So what does he say we should do when that happens, when we start to, slip back into old habits? Well, it comes back to remembering that the physical world, it's not like, set in stone. It's responding to what's happening inside of us, our inner world. So when those doubts pop up, we got to acknowledge them, but we can't give them power. Just gently redirect your attention back to that vision, back to, the feeling of it already being real.
So it's like we're training our minds, to focus on what we want, like we train a muscle at the gym.
Exactly. The more we practice feeling that our wish is fulfilled, the stronger our belief gets. And that brings us to another concept that Neville's always talking about, faith. But he doesn't see faith in the traditional way, right?
Yeah, now that you mention it, I do remember reading something about that in the stuff I sent you.
Yeah.
How does Neville, how does he describe it?
He sees it as this knowing that goes beyond what our senses are telling us. It's like a certainty that what we want is already ours, even if we, can't quite see the proof yet.
But holding on to that certainty when everything around you is saying otherwise, I mean, that's got to take some serious willpower. What are some ways to help us strengthen that faith?
Well, Neville, he's big on persistence. He says that we got to constantly return to our vision, reminding ourselves that it's real. He even has this quote. He says, "Do not be disobedient to the heavenly vision."
Do not be disobedient to the heavenly vision. Ooh, I like that. That's powerful. It's a good reminder to stay focused, to trust that things are, working out, even if we can't see it yet. I think a lot of people get stuck in that waiting period, that time between when we set the intention and when we see it actually happen.
Oh, yeah, that waiting period. That can be tough. It tests your faith, for sure. But Neville says that even then, things are still happening. It's like a seed that's planted. Just because you don't see the sprout yet doesn't mean it's not, growing underground.
Okay, I like that analogy a lot. It reminds us that we got to be patient, that we can't expect things to happen overnight. What can we do during that waiting time to stay connected to our vision?
Gratitude. Gratitude's a big one. If we keep expressing that gratitude for what we want as if it's, already ours, it keeps our energy high, keeps us believing.
I can see how that helps. It keeps us, focused on the positive, keeps the doubts away. Is there anything else that we can do during that time to keep our energy aligned?
Well, Neville talks a lot about forgiveness. He says that if we're holding on to, guilt or shame or regret about the past, it can block us from attracting what we want now.
So it's not just about letting go of anger towards other people, but even towards ourselves.
Exactly, because if we're beating ourselves up about past mistakes or holding on to grudges, we're putting out this energy of lack, of not being worthy, and that's not exactly gonna, attract good things into our lives, is it?
No, not at all. Forgiveness, it's like a way to clear out the old energy and make space for, new possibilities. But what about like when someone else hurts us? How does that fit in?
Well, Neville says that forgiving someone, it doesn't mean we're condoning what they did. It just means that we're letting go of that emotional hold it has on us. We're choosing to, not let it define us anymore.
So it's like an act of self-empowerment. It's taking our power back and saying, you know what, I'm not going to let this negativity control my present or my future.
Yeah, exactly. And it might be a tough process, but the feeling of freedom and lightness that comes from forgiving, it's so worth it. Have you ever experienced that?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
There have been times when, I realized I was holding on to anger about something that happened years ago. And once I was able to really forgive, it was like this weight lifted. It gave me so much energy back, to focus on what's important.
That's really beautiful, and it really shows how much power our thoughts and beliefs have, and it connects back to Neville's idea that the world is like our mirror. It reflects back what we're holding inside.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to be aware of the stories we're telling ourselves about other people. If we want to see things change in a relationship, we got to shift those inner assumptions.
I think that's a great takeaway for our listeners, too. Think about a relationship where you'd like things to be, better. What assumptions are you making about that person? Could changing those assumptions, could that change how you interact with them?
That's a really good question to ask ourselves. Have you ever, consciously changed your assumptions about someone and seen things get better?
Oh, yeah, totally. I remember I was having a really tough time with a colleague. I had all these negative assumptions about them. But then I thought, okay, I'm going to try something different. I started focusing on their good qualities, assuming the best, instead of the worst.
Wow, that must have been hard. Did it actually change anything?
It did. I mean, it wasn't like an instant change or anything, but our interactions definitely became like more peaceful. I wasn't so defensive, and they seemed more, open to me.
That's really cool. It shows how powerful our minds can be. And it all ties back to Neville saying that the world is our mirror. So if we change how we're looking, what we see changes too.
Exactly. And speaking of reflecting back, we haven't even talked about prayer yet. How does Neville see prayer?
You're right, we haven't. And I'm really curious to hear about that, because I know Neville doesn't view prayer in the, the traditional sense. It's not about like begging for things.
Not at all. For Neville, prayer is about like connecting with the divine that's already inside us. It's about feeling and knowing that our wish is, already fulfilled, and expressing, gratitude for it.
So it's more like a meditative state where we're embodying the feeling of our prayer already being answered.
Exactly. And Neville actually, he says that the best state for this kind of prayer is like when we're about to fall asleep, because our conscious mind is relaxed, and the subconscious is more receptive.
Makes sense. It's like we're planting seeds in the most fertile ground, and in that state, we can really, imagine what we want, feel those emotions, and affirm that it's already real. It's all about aligning our inner world with the outer world that we want.
Yeah, it's really powerful. And we can do it anytime, anywhere. We can have a formal meditation or just take a few quiet moments throughout the day.
So to our listeners, give it a try. Experiment with this kind of prayer. Notice how it feels different from, how you might have prayed before. Pay attention to how your energy shifts, how your awareness changes.
As we start cultivating these practices, the gratitude, the forgiveness, the aligned prayer, we're not just manifesting what we want, but we're actually transforming our whole reality.
We're becoming the creators, We're actively shaping our lives instead of just reacting to whatever happens.
Exactly. We're not victims of circumstance. We are the architects of our own reality. And that's an incredibly empowering thought.
It really is. And it leads us to another idea that Neville talks about. This idea that there's a divine plan for each of us.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not some, rigid path that's set in stone. We actually have the power to co-create with the universe.
Right. It's like we have this blueprint, this potential for greatness inside us, but we get to choose, how we want to express it.
Okay, so we have the divine blueprint, but we get to decide how we want to use it. I like that.
And Neville, he reminds us that even when we, mess up, those experiences are still guiding us. They're helping us, learn and grow and get back on track.
I find that really comforting, because it takes the pressure off of having to, be perfect all the time. It's like, okay, I'm going to make mistakes, but they're just part of the process.
They're not failures. They're just, feedback. They show us what works, what doesn't work, and help us get closer to our goals.
I'm starting to get it now. It's about trusting, trusting the process, trusting that even the challenges are helping us reach our full potential. And it all comes back to that inner work, the gratitude, the forgiveness, aligning our thoughts and beliefs with what we want.
You got it. It's a journey, a constant journey of self-discovery and creation. And we get to choose every single day how we want to travel on that path.
That's beautifully said. We've covered so much in this deep dive. Before we wrap up, are there any last bits of wisdom from Neville that you want to share with our listeners?
Yes, absolutely. I think the most important thing to remember is that manifesting, it's a practice. It's not just something you do once. It's a way of being in the world, It's about cultivating that mindset of abundance, aligning our energy with our desires, and trusting that the divine plan is unfolding.
And remembering that it's supposed to be fun too. We've got to find those moments of playfulness, celebrate the wins along the way, and never stop believing that we can manifest anything we want.
Absolutely. It's about embracing the magic, knowing that we're co-creating our reality with the universe, and that anything is possible.
I am so inspired right now. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us.
It's been a joy to explore these ideas with you.
Stay tuned, everyone. We'll be back in just a minute with part 3 of our deep dive into Neville Goddard and manifesting your desires. All right, welcome back to the deep dive. It's amazing how much we've unpacked already. We've talked about how doubt works, the power of of living in the end and aligning ourselves with gratitude.
We really have gone deep, haven't we? And I think we're ready to tackle one of Neville's most mind-blowing ideas, this whole "the world is yourself pushed out" concept.
Yeah, this one really makes you, rethink everything.
It does. It challenges us to see things in a whole new way. Neville's basically saying that everything we experience, it's a reflection of our own beliefs, our own assumptions.
So it's not just about attracting stuff into our lives. It's about understanding that we're actually creating our reality. With every thought, every belief, every assumption we have.
That's it. It's like we're always projecting our inner world onto the outer world. And this affects everything, our relationships, our work, our whole well-being.
Okay, I see how this connects back to what we were saying about, changing our assumptions about people. It's not about trying to control them. It's about, recognizing that how we see them affects how they show up in our lives.
Yeah. It's about taking responsibility for the energy we bring, to those interactions. And this is where Neville's teachings on forgiveness, they become even more important.
Because if we're holding on to resentment or anger, it's like we're putting that negativity out there.
Yeah.
Right. We're basically setting ourselves up for conflict and disharmony.
You got it. Forgiveness for Neville, it's about letting go of those negative projections. It's about choosing to see the other person and ourselves with love and compassion.
So it's about remembering that we're all on this journey. We all make mistakes. We all have the potential to grow and change.
Beautifully put. And when we can come to our relationships from that place, of understanding and forgiveness, it opens the door for healing, for reconciliation, for deeper connection.
It's like we're changing the whole energy of the relationship.
Okay.
And speaking of energy, we haven't talked about prayer yet.
That's right. And this is where Neville, he really challenges the traditional way we think about prayer. It's not about, begging some higher power for things.
It's about recognizing that the divine is within us.
Right. Exactly. He describes it as feeling and knowing that what you want, it's already yours. And then just expressing gratitude for it, aligning your inner state with the reality you want to experience.
So it's not about trying to convince, some outside force to give us what we want. It's about realizing that we're already connected to that power. And I remember Neville saying that the best time for this kind of prayer is when we're almost asleep.
Yeah, he says that when we're in that drowsy, relaxed state, our conscious mind is quiet and our subconscious is more open to suggestions. Like we're planting those seeds in the richest soil,
In that state, we can really imagine what we want, feel the emotions, and affirm that it's real. We're aligning our inner world with the outer world.
It's powerful stuff. And the best part is we can do it anywhere, anytime. It can be a formal meditation or just a few, quiet moments during the day.
So to our listeners, I encourage you to experiment with this kind of prayer.
Yeah.
See how it feels different. Notice how your energy shifts, how your awareness changes.
And as you explore these practices, the gratitude, the forgiveness, this aligned prayer, remember, it's not about being perfect. Neville always emphasized that it's about progress, not perfection.
It's about enjoying the journey, knowing that we're always growing, always changing.
Yeah. And it's about trusting that even when things, don't go as planned, those experiences are still leading us in the right direction. There are opportunities for growth and course correction.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Neville Goddard, I want to leave our listeners with one of his most thought-provoking questions. He asks, what would the world look like if you truly believed that your desires were already yours?
What a question. It really pushes us to look beyond our current reality, to imagine a world where our dreams have already come true.
And in that space of possibility, anything is possible. Doubt might still try to creep in, but you have the tools now to quiet it and step into your power.
Yes. Embrace the journey, celebrate the wins, and never stop believing in the magic that's inside of you.
This has been such a rich exploration of Neville Goddard's teachings. I want to thank you again for sharing your expertise with us today.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, happy manifesting.